Glad you could be with us yet again on our news desk. Here are the headlines. Government has targeted to raise $22 million annually through the collection of the newly introduced 13-way tariff on internet calls. 3.1 million people in the country tested for HIV in the first and second quarters of 2018. The United Party for National Development, UPND, has called on for the immediate withdrawal of the internet calls tariff introduced by government. Here now is the news in detail. Government has projected to raise $22 million annually through the collection of the 13-way tariff on internet calls. During its sitting on 13th August 2018, Cabinet resolved to introduce a 13-way per day tariff on internet phone calls following an increase in its use at the expense of traditional phone calls. Transport and Communications Minister Brian Mushimba says the money that will be collected will be channeled to improve infrastructure and create more jobs for the Zambian people. Speaking during a media briefing, Mr. Mushimba said the 13-way is inconsequential because the people who are using such services will not even feel the pain. He adds that Cabinet has also approved the introduction of the Cybersecurity and Cybercrime Bill that will repeal and replace certain parts of the clauses and sections contained in the Electronic Communications and Transactions Act No. 20 of 2009.
You know, the context is that we want to share this burden. There's a burden created by the movement, the disruption that technology has brought. You know, and there are revenues that are lost to both the telecom companies and government. And a lot of benefits is accruing to you as a consumer. And you're helping Facebook, and you're helping WhatsApp, and you're helping these app providers, you know, make billions of money. And we're saying, until they can own up, which is a larger conversation, we have to find a resource basket. And we're asking you to help us because you are the one that's participating and helping them. We're asking, placing a bit of responsibility on you to say, just give a little bit so that tomorrow you'll be able to still make that call to Tanzania. We're still encouraging technological advancement. That's why when we get this 13-way and we aggregate it, we're leaving the chunk of it with the telecom companies because we want them to innovate and to grow their technology to continue supporting you and serving you better. You know,
Speaking at the same briefing, Information and Broadcasting Services Minister Doris Leah says the decision to introduce a 13-way tariff on the internet calls is not meant to punish Zambians. Ms. Leah says the new tariff is to encourage Zambian citizens to use traditional means of making phone calls. She has also clarified that the new tariff only applies to internet phone calls and does not affect social media.
It does not affect social media. It doesn't. It's only for internet phone calls. I hope that makes it much clearer.
Thank you. Can't be more clear than that. I know you're all very intelligent guys and ladies.
Yes, please, you had your hand up.
Yes, you're saying these social media giants are getting data and money from Zambia for free. Why don't you charge them instead of transferring the charge onto the poor Zambians?
Clearly, this is a discussion that we are having at the African Union. Other jurisdictions have gone to extreme and just shut down WhatsApp. There are countries in the world you go, they've just shut down WhatsApp. We have a choice as a government to make that decision and say, look, we just switch off and nobody in Zambia should access WhatsApp. But we are saying no. These are the times we are living in of technological advances. Our citizens should have access to this technology. We will begin engaging at the African Union level discussions with these institutions so that we share the commercial benefits that they are getting. But in the meantime, we are saying, Zambians, let's be patriotic. Let's encourage ourselves to use what benefits us. Because if we use Airtel phone calls, MTN phone calls, Zamtel phone calls, we are keeping those jobs there. When we use internet phone calls, we are only supporting jobs in Silicon Valley in California. So there's a correlation between your using which phone and how many jobs we can keep in Zambia. This is about jobs. That 13-way is not about tax. It's about keeping these jobs in Zambia so that we don't encourage only young millionaires in America, because we are all in Africa using these internet phone calls, but the only people getting rich are the young Zuckerbergs that you hear about in America. We are saying no. Why don't we use traditional phone calls? Because the infrastructure here, which is supporting these jobs, is for traditional phone calls. But that conversation we need to have. Just like America has begun to have that conversation with Facebook, European Union has begun to have that conversation with Facebook. China just shut it down. We are saying, let us have that conversation as well. There's no.
The Media Institute of Southern Africa, MISA, and bloggers of Zambia have expressed concern over Cabinet's decision to introduce a 13-way tariff on internet calls, describing the tariff as a form of double and punitive taxation. And the two organizations have expressed worry with the fast speed at which the government is moving to enact the cybercrime and cybersecurity bill aimed at regulating internet usage, especially social media in Zambia. In a joint statement, Mr. Zambia chairperson Helen Mwale and Bloggers of Zambia founder Richard Mulonga are calling on the government to withdraw the tariff and rather consider investigating in the sector to ensure that all Zambians have access to affordable, reliable and open internet. They say the 13-way per-day tariff is a major threat to freedom of expression, access to information, media rights, freedom and assembly online, and an affront to the enjoyment of digital rights. They add that the 13-way tariff falls within a pattern of government clampdown on online expression, adding that the tariff on internet calls will limit access to basic rights and will harm businesses. They feel the underlying objective of the tariff is to stifle free expression rights of millions of Zambians who increasingly depend on online tools to communicate. Further stating that this is a systematic attempt of censoring online platforms, and the two organizations have reiterated that the process of enacting the cybercrime and cybersecurity bill must be made open and transparent for an input from citizens, bloggers, journalists and activists. They have since demanded that the process of enacting the Access to Information Law and the operationalization of the media communications policy be expedited together with the cyber laws. A total of 3.1 million people tested for HIV in the first and second quarters of 2018, representing a 20% increase from the 2.6 million people that tested during the same period in 2017. But Republican Vice President Inonga Wina says the government is concerned that despite the figures recorded, people are still reluctant to know their HIV status. Speaking when she officiated at the second National HIV Testing, Counseling and Treatment Day at Chawama Primary School grounds in Lusaka, Mrs. Wina disclosed that a 4% increase has been recorded in the number of people on antiretroviral treatment. Ms. Wina also launched the implementation framework and guidance for free exposure prophylaxis PrEP aimed at reducing HIV transmission, and she was speaking in a speech read on her behalf by Minister in the Office of the Vice President, Sylvia Chalikosa.
It is estimated that 1.2 million people live with HIV/AIDS in Zambia. Against this background, the Zambian government, through the Ministry of Health, has developed and implemented diverse programs to reduce the prevalence in the country. HIV testing is a critical step in HIV treatment and prevention, especially among the key populations, which is why last year President Edgar Lungu launched the National HIV Testing, Counseling and Treatment. Today marked 1 year since the launch of the program, and this year's commemorations were celebrated under the theme, My Family, My Nation, My Responsibility. This year's National HIV Testing and Counseling Day was graced by Republican Vice President Mrs. Inonga Wina, who was represented by Minister in the Office of the Vice President, Sylvia Chalikosa. The Vice President announced that a total of 3.1 million people have tested for HIV in the first and second quarter of 2018.
We are already seeing the dividends of this policy shift, resulting in a 20% increase in the number of people testing for HIV, having recorded a total of 3.1 million people testing in the first round and second quarter of 2018. This is in comparison to the 2.5 million in the first and second quarter of 2017. In addition, a 4% increase has been recorded in the number of people receiving antiretroviral treatment services, which translates to approximately 100,000 people in just 6 months. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this year's theme, My Family, My Nation, My Responsibility, stresses the importance that the burden of HIV impacts families and ultimately the nation.
Health Minister Dr. Shtalu Chilufya expressed confidence in the HIV epidemic being brought under control.
Guest of honor, you will be seeing a surge in our interventions on HIV/AIDS in Lusaka and the Copperbelt and Western Province. This is because that's where we see the prevalence higher. They say to see us improve infrastructure and human capital and more community interventions, we are confident that will bring HIV under control in areas where the incidence and prevalence is highest. As I conclude, guest of honor, I want to assure the nation and all the cooperating partners that we are advanced in our program to restructure the National AIDS Council into a leaner structure that will be coordinating civil society, other community-led interventions.
The United Nations was represented at the event.
The theme of this campaign this year, My Family, My Nation, My Responsibility, frames perfectly what the HIV response is about. It's personal responsibility, people-centered, and love for humanity. The HIV epidemic will not end if we succumb to complacency. The starting point to ending AIDS is knowing your status, and therefore I call on all to access HIV services and know your status. I wish to commend the government of the Republic of Zambia and through you, Your Excellency, the Honourable Minister of Health, for his passion, leadership and commitment in translating the government's vision of ending AIDS into concrete action and for bringing on board all key partners in solidarity to accelerate the fast-track agenda.
The Vice President, through her representative, used the occasion to launch the HIV self-testing framework, which is aimed at addressing the low coverage of HIV testing services among hard-to-reach groups, and the implementation framework and guidance for pre-exposure prophylaxis PrEP aimed at reducing HIV transmissions. The day couldn't go without entertainment and testimonies from persons living with HIV.
My name is Shambhala Maria Diangamo. I am 22 years old, and I was born with HIV. I found out I was positive when I was about 7 years old. I always had to take medication, but I never knew what for. My mom always told me not to play with sharp objects or to go for sleepovers and stuff. But I had no idea what she was talking about. When I was 18 years of age, my life momentarily came to a halt when I became confined to bed for some months at the University Teaching Hospital because I was not adhering to medication. At my very age, when all hope was lost, I met a vibrant young man who later became my mentor. He persuaded and encouraged me to get my act together, and he said to me, HIV is part of you, but it does not define who you are. These few words changed my life forever. A few months later, I decided to tell my friends about my status for the first time. I was so scared, afraid that they would freak out. Surprisingly, it was quite the opposite. They did not stigmatize, but actually yelled and got mad at me for not telling them earlier. And there I was, dumbfounded, like, what's happening? It's supposed to be the other way around.
Nakaonga reporting for Q News in Lusaka.
Justice Minister Given Lubinda says the draft national legal aid policy has been finalized and is at Cabinet Office for consideration. Mr. Lubinda says the policy aims at providing accessible and quality legal aid to the indigent and vulnerable groups in civil and criminal matters throughout the country. Speaking during the handover of laptops and reference materials to the Legal Aid Board by the European Union worth 100,000 euros, Mr. Lubinda bemoaned the lack of access to legal representation by the poor in communities due to lack of knowledge about the Legal Aid Board. He has since called on the Legal Aid Board to embark on sensitization programs aimed at helping citizens know about its mandate and help them have access to legal representation in the courts of law. Mr. Lubinda has also urged the board to use the donated books to understand the law and cases for their clients so as to help assist the courts arrive at well-articulated and just judgments.
May I request the Governance Department in the Ministry of Justice to work with you at Legal Aid Board to ensure that you provide those manuals, those brochures, to the people of Zambia through their constituency offices. Let every constituency office in Zambia have those materials. I was telling some of you that as Member of Parliament for Kabwata, I receive no less than 2 issues every day to do with justice. Fortunately, I have been taught in the time that I've been in the Ministry of Justice, so now the justice system works in Zambia. I wonder how it is like for those of my colleagues who they themselves do not even know about the existence of the Legal Aid Board. So please empower members of Parliament so that they may empower our people by providing those manuals to them.
Speaking at the same event, European Union Representative Gianluca Azzoni commended government for finalizing the draft legal aid policy. He notes that justice plays a central role in the development plans of the country, featuring prominently in the Vision 2030 and in the 7th National Development Plan, which aims at creating a conducive environment for an inclusive society and a diversified economy.
Over the last few years, the Legal Aid Board has taken up the task to steer the process of developing a national legal aid policy, together with other stakeholders in the justice sector. The policy is based on the right to legal aid and recognizes the duty and responsibility of the state to provide for legal aid. The policy aims at the provision of accessible and quality legal aid to the indigent and vulnerable groups in society and criminal matters throughout the country. It recognizes paralegals and the role of CSOs in delivering legal aid.
This support in terms of equipment adds to the support already provided under PLEAD to the Legal Aid Board through training, technical assistance and policy advice. PLEAD worked with the Legal Aid Board in the establishment and strengthening of legal services units at subordinate courts, as well as in providing paralegal desks at correctional facilities and police stations in Lusaka, Copperbelt and southern provinces.
Over the last
And Legal Aid Board Chairperson Mandi Banda has commended the European Union and the Germany government for facilitating the procurement of the office equipment and reference materials.
Materials and equipment that are being handed over today have been procured under the Program for Legal Empowerment and Enhanced Justice Delivery. This ceremony is just a snapshot of the good relations we have and the commitment of the European Union and the German government in ensuring justice for all people in Zambia. I firmly believe that our cooperation will sow seeds of friendship in the hearts and minds of our countries. On behalf of the board members and staff at Legal Aid Board, I wish to express our sincere gratitude for the gesture. I want to assure you that we shall provide the necessary oversight to ensure that there is proper usage and management of the equipment and the reference books. As I conclude, let me acknowledge and appreciate the commitment and passion that the Honorable Minister of Justice has shown in accelerating justice, particularly for the vulnerable people in our country.
The United Party for National Development, UPND, has called for the immediate withdrawal of the 13-way per day tariff on internet calls introduced by government. UPND chairperson for Mines, Percy Chanda, says the PF government has no idea of how to get the country out of the economic mess they have put Zambians in, and that all they know is to keep squeezing the already impoverished citizens through imposition of all sorts of taxes and levies. Mr. Chanda says the new tax imposition on internet calls is retrogressive and oppressive to small and medium business entrepreneurs, and that the UPND condemns it in the strongest possible terms. He says the introduction of the 13-way tariff per day will be incorporated in each talk time, translating to 109 kwacha 15-way per mobile number per year. Mr. Chanda says mobile subscribers are already taxed for using social media platform each time they buy data bundles. He states that experience has shown that punitive taxes under a failing, crumbling economy will never develop a country and its people. Mr. Chanda says taxes and levies do not necessarily develop the country, but that they instead burden and fatigue citizens and poison the business environment. He says the economy develops from a good economic environment and sound policies that generate more wealth from locally generated resources. He says the UPND considers social media platforms as one effective tool for economic transformation, as communication is important for rapid economic growth. Mr. Chanda points out that this is why most envied countries in terms of rapid economic development, including in Africa, social media platforms are easy to access through the creation of free Wi-Fi hotspots in all key cities and public places. Community Development and Social Welfare Minister Emarine Kabanshi has disclosed that more than 700 NGOs have been registered under the Contentious NGO Act of 2009. And Ms. Kabanshi has revealed that a new NGO has come from the United States that will help with the software to capture vulnerable children in Zambia. She has told journalists in Lusaka that the NGO will start with the street kids because government at the moment does not have a data of how many street kids the country has, making it difficult to help them. Ms. Kabanshi says with the data collection, it will help government identify their families so that they can be reunited with their parents.
As you are very well aware, there is an NGO that has come from America coming to help us with the software to take the data of the vulnerable children in Zambia. We are going to start with the street kids because I know streetism is a very big issue. And unless we have the number, the right data for us to plan and budget for the street kids, I think it will be a very big problem. But we are already working on that. We are working with the NGO from America who's going to give us a software to capture all the street kids and all the vulnerable children so that we can use the data to structure our programs in future and also to make sure that all the children have a family. Because we know institutionalization of children is not good. Children to grow up well, they need parental love. They need love from the family. And so with the data, we'll be able to make sure that we take them to their families, and if their families are not there, then we'll find them foster parents or they'll be adopted. And those that will have a lot of problem, then the last resort will be institutionalization. As you are very
3 people have died in a road traffic accident that happened along the Ndola-Kapirimposhi road, leaving 6 others seriously injured. Police spokesperson Esther Katongo says the accident occurred at a place called Luampesa yesterday. Ms. Katongo says the accident involved a Toyota Noah registration number ACR 2255, which was being driven by Daniel Hara, aged 37, of Ndeke Overspill in Ndola. She has identified the deceased as Namakau Muletetwi, aged 59, of Kapirimposhi's Riverside, who died on the spot. Mavuto Hara, aged 46, of Ndeke Overspill in Ndola, who died on the way to Ndola Teaching Hospital. And Beatrice Mwanza, aged between 20 and 25, who died at Mishikishi Rural Health Center. She explains that the accident happened when the driver lost control of the motor vehicle due to excessive speed, which later careered off the road and overturned. Ms. Katongo says the injured were rushed to Ndola Teaching Hospital for medical attention. Participatory Ecological Land Use Management, PELUM, has called upon governments to carefully look at the regional protocols and the way they can impact on the country's agricultural sector, biodiversity and farmers' rights. PELUM Country Coordinator Muketoi Wamunyima says his organization is concerned with protocols such as the African Regional Intellectual Property Organization and the SADC Seed Harmonization. Speaking at a major briefing, Mr. Wamunyima notes that the protocols highly favor increased trade in seed in the region at the expense of protecting and promoting the country's biodiversity and upholding the rights of the farmers and the country's seed sovereignty. He states that in addition to the local seed laws, PELUM has seen proposed regional laws that are meant to further restrict breeding, sharing, exchange and selling of seed by strengthening patent laws requiring individuals to patent seed to sell seed. He says that while Pelum appreciates the fact that the industry has huge potential to generate revenue for the country, this should not impact the indigenous seed traditional practices and socio-economic values. Mr. Omunyuma says Pelum therefore proposes the review of the seed to harmonization taking place at SADC level and allow for more space for civil society participation in the process. President Edgar Lungu has been called upon to ensure Zambia's unitary state status remains intact. Development activist Canisius Banda is urging President Lungu not to allow any province or region secede from the rest of the country. Dr. Banda is of the view that regardless of any agreements that were signed in the past, Zambia must remain a unitary state. In an interview with QTV News, Dr. Banda says President Lungu should therefore not sign any special pact with any province or region of Zambia. He states that those that are still agitating for the breakaway of Western Province from the rest of Zambia must be pursued and arrested.
They must be hunted down. President Lungu must look for them, find them, bring them here, extradited wherever they happen to be. They must come here. Those are rabble-rousers. Those are enemies of the state. They are guilty of treason. We don't want people like that anywhere. And whoever is backing them, we must find out who it is. Who is supporting these renegades who want Zambia to be destroyed? So let us remain united.
Police in Ndola have detained 2 Ndola City Council employees and are searching for the third one for alleged involvement in the illegal dealings relating to land in the city. Ndola City Council was on Monday alerted of some illegal dealings of land that was happening in Kaloko on a titled property belonging to Zedmart Holdings. Council Public Relations Manager Tilienji Mwanza says the local authority in the company of state police quickly swung into action and moved on site to curtail the illegal dealings. Ms. Mwanza says upon reaching the site, Ndola City Council found a front-end loader clearing the piece of land in question and individuals removing already existing beacons. She says the council will ensure that it curbs all illegal land allocations and mismanagement in the city. And Ndola City Mayor Amon Chisenga has henceforth sent a strong warning to all those involved in the vice that they will be dealt with using the full force of the law. The Teaching Council of Zambia has noted the need for community schools teachers to be trained and acquire qualifications that will help them provide quality education to pupils in community schools around the country. TCZ spokesperson Ngoza Malonga says the council has put a requirement for all teachers in community schools to gradually get trained within a period of 6 years so that they can acquire some sort of qualification. Ms. Malonga says the role community schools teachers play in the provision of education cannot be overemphasized, but that there is a need for them to acquire qualifications. She says the council is aware that most teachers in community schools are volunteers and unqualified, a situation which disadvantages the pupils in those schools. Ms. Malonga states that the council, through its prudent to engage administrations in community schools to ensure that they encourage the teachers to get trained within a period of 6 years in order to provide quality education to pupils.
Community school teachers are actually providing a very, very good service and doing a commendable job out there, because if they were all to stop teaching today, who's going to provide that service? But then again, there's an issue of quality education. So what we've done as a council is we've given them a time frame of 6 years in which they should make sure that they make good. In 6 years, someone can go back to school, get trained, and be a qualified teacher. Which is why we're saying we cannot continue leaving education to chance. Which is why we've said even a teacher who's teaching in a community school should make an effort to go and get trained. And then even the administrators in community schools should not babysit these teachers. They should encourage them to go and get trained so that they also provide the quality education. And then you and I should appreciate that that child in a community school is equally as good as that child in any other school. So why can't we provide them qualified teachers as well? So this is why the council has said, in as much as we appreciate the effort that they are offering, that they are doing now, we would want them to get trained and teach the children, because those children are equally as important. So 6 years, we expect that the teachers in these schools will go to college and begin to provide this needed education, because those children are equally as important. Community schools.
The Pharmaceutical Society of Zambia says it is currently utilizing various government policies to support the local manufacturing of medicines. Society Media Chairperson Daniel Kabani says the country has people in the medical and other related fields capable of manufacturing medicines. Mr. Kabani says local manufacturing or manufactured medicines will help the country keep its citizens safe from some health complications that imported drugs bring about. He has further encouraged members of the public to buy their medicines from registered pharmacies and drug stores to avoid complicating their health.
We would equally want to highlight as a society that we want to encourage members of the public to buy their medicines from registered pharmacies, because in every registered pharmacy there is a pharmacist there who is present there to ensure that you are getting the right medicine to address your conditions, but also to protect you from this. We would still also want to encourage ourselves to utilize the policies that are provided for by the government to go into local manufacturing, because some of these medicines, we have the people that are fully trained and qualified as pharmacists to be able to make these drugs. If we can make them locally, we would be able to use things that we know very well. So that is the message that we have as Pharmaceutical Society of Zambia on behalf of my president, Mr. Jerome Kanika.
Chawama Ward 2 Councillor Leonard Kombe is happy with the development of programs in his area, such as the putting up of a drainage which will address floods and other challenges that come with the rainy season. Mr. Kombe tells Q News that 1.6 kilometers concrete drainage has been constructed in the area at a cost of 600,000 kwacha. He is optimistic that with the construction of the drainage, the challenge of flooding in the area will be a thing of the past. Mr. Kombe says he will work closely with the residents in his area to ensure that the drainage is safeguarded so that it does not clog due to waste being thrown in it. He adds that the area will in the next 1 week witness the commissioning of modern toilets at the market, which were built using the Constituency Development Fund.
When we went into office, the first challenge that we found in Chawama was the drainage issues. And I'm happy to mention to you that we've done a construction of about 1.6 kilometers of road drainage stretch, running from Anglican all the way passing through Roman Catholic up to Komboka. It's a concrete drain, meaning we don't need to start excavation every year. It's a concrete drain. We've also done another drain from Snow White there. It runs all the way up to Tuatasha there. These drainages have costed us about 600,000. I've also done a new modern toilet in the Chawama main market using Ward Fund at a cost of 330. It's one of its kind. I would appreciate if you went to check. We are commissioning it in the next 1 week. We are also hoping, because we are working as a team in Chawama, the team being headed by the MP, Minister of Chiefs and Traditional Affairs, Honorable Schare. We are turning this school where we are right now into a twin school. Chawama constituency doesn't have a secondary school. We're turning it into a twin school. We are doing high-rise buildings there. The construction of the library as we speak, the contractor is mobilizing on site as we speak.
That developmental item wraps up the news, but before I take a run, here's a recap of stories in the headlines. Government has targeted to raise $22 million annually through the collection of the newly introduced 13-way tariff on internet calls. 3.1 million people in the country have tested for HIV in the first and second quarters of 2018. And the United Party for National Development, UPND, has called for the immediate withdrawal of the internet calls tariff introduced by the government. That's it all for the news. Thank you so much for your time. God bless.